Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We take your sources, cut through the noise, and give you that knowledge shortcut. Today, we're getting into a really interesting piece of gear. It's small, but honestly, it's become just fundamental for bass players, both live and in the studio. We're talking about the MXR M81 Bass Preamp.
That's right.
Yeah, and our mission here is to figure out why. Why is this pedal seen as this, compact, studio-grade powerhouse? People call it the Swiss Army knife of tone. Let's unpack that.
Well, it's interesting because the M81, it's really a story of refinement. It came out in 2014, but its roots go back further. It's actually derived pretty directly from the clean channel of an older, very popular pedal, the MXR M80 Bass DI plus ORAC. You probably know that one.
Oh, yeah, the M80, sure.
Yeah.
But this is different, you're saying.
Exactly. They made a very specific choice. They didn't just rehouse the M80. They deliberately took out the distortion circuit. Now, that circuit in the M80, it was cool, but it could be noisy, and it kind of compromised the pure clean tone path sometimes. So by ditching that and focusing just on the preamp and the DI side, MXR could really upgrade the components, fine-tune the EQ, and just go all in on clean, high-fidelity transparency.
Okay, so it's purpose-built. A dedicated clean machine. Precision is the name of the game here. We're looking at a transparent preamp, a tone shaper, and a really solid DI box, all in one. It's about getting that clean signal right, first and foremost.
Absolutely. That's the foundation.
So let's dig into that foundation.
Yeah.
How does a little box like this earn that studio-grade label? It must start with the components, right? The internal architecture.
It does. It's all about signal integrity from the get-go. You've got an all-analog preamp and EQ circuit, and critically, it's built around premium, low-noise operational amplifiers, or op amps.
Low-noise op amps. Okay, what does that mean for, for someone playing through it?
It means a really, really low noise floor. Practically speaking, even if you crank the gain or you're pushing those EQ controls hard to, say, cut through a busy live mix, you're not adding a bunch of hiss or background noise. In the studio, obviously, noise is the absolute enemy, so that detail alone makes it incredibly valuable.
Right, and headroom. That's always a big one with bass, especially with modern active basses. They put out a huge signal.
Oh, absolutely huge. And if your preamp runs out of headroom, that signal just slams into the ceiling and clips. It distorts.
And not in a good way. Not like a nice tube breakup.
No, not at all. It's that harsh, kind of fizzy, almost digital-sounding overload. It just ruins a recording track, especially on those low B strings or drop tunings. The M81's high headroom is like having this big safety margin. It lets those powerful active pickups really breathe without distorting the input stage. It's pretty much essential for modern players.
Okay, that makes sense. But sticking with transparency,
yeah,
how does it treat the bass itself, especially, say, my old passive P-Bass? I see the input impedance is listed as 2.2 megohms. Why is that number important?
Ah, that's a great point. Because this is where the tech spec directly impacts the sound you hear. See, if a preamp's input impedance is too low, it essentially loads down your passive pickups. Think of it like it's drawing too much electrical energy from those sensitive coils. And when that happens, you lose clarity, you lose punch, and crucially, you lose that top-end sparkle and air. Your bass just sounds duller.
Okay, I see.
So that high impedance, the 2.2 megohm, is specifically chosen to prevent that loading. It lets the passive pickups behave as they should, as if they were plugged into, a really good tube amp input or a high-end audio interface. It preserves the natural character of the instrument.
A tone keeper built in.
Exactly. And tied into that neutrality, it's designed so that when all the EQ knobs are set straight up, at noon, the frequency response is dead flat. It adds zero color unless you tell it to. It's a truly neutral starting point.
All right, so we've got this super clean, high-fidelity, neutral foundation, the ultimate blank canvas, really. But you need tools to paint on that canvas, right?
Yeah.
Which brings us to the controls, and particularly that EQ section.
Yes, and the M81's strength isn't just that it has EQ, but how precise and powerful it is. It's an active 3-band EQ, and each band gives you a plus or minus 15 dB range. Boost or cut.
15 dB, that's a lot.
It's huge. You can make really drastic changes if you need to, or just very subtle surgical tweaks. It gives you enormous control.
Okay, let's get specific then. What frequencies are we actually controlling here?
So the bass control is centered down low at 40 hertz. This is great because it adds real weight and depth without making things muddy, which often happens with bass controls centered higher, like around 80 or 100 hertz.
That keeps it tight.
Keeps it tight. Then the treble is up at 4 kilohertz. That's where you get your string definition, finger noise, pick attack, kind of the articulation zones. You can boost that for clarity, or if your strings are maybe a bit too zingy or harsh, you can roll it back smoothly.
Makes sense. But the mid-range, that's the special part here, isn't it? The sweepable mid.
That is absolutely the heart of this pedal. Most small preamps, if they even have a mid control, it's fixed. Maybe it boosts or cuts at 500 hertz or 800 hertz, something like that. But the M81 has two mid knobs. One is the mid level, that's your boost or cut, again, 15 dB. But the other knob, the mid frequency, lets you choose the exact summer frequency you want to affect. And it sweeps all the way from 250 hertz, which gets into the lower mids, the warmth and body area, up to 1 kilohertz, which covers your punch, your growl, your ability to cut through the guitars.
Ah, I see. So you can really zero in on a specific frequency that's causing problems or one you want to emphasize. That encourages real EQ discipline, I guess.
It really does. You're not just vaguely boosting mids. You're targeting something specific.
Look at those setting examples they provide. They illustrate it perfectly.
Yeah, like that vintage warmth setting. It's not just turning mids down. It suggests a specific subtle cut, maybe 4 dB down, but crucially, centered at 400 hertz. Exactly. And 400 hertz, that can be a real mud frequency in a band mix, where the bass and the low end of the guitars kind of fight. By carefully scooping just a bit right there, you create space and clarity without making the bass sound thin.
Okay. And the opposite, that slap modern setting.
Right. For that, you might want a mid boost, maybe 3 dB or so, but you target it much higher, maybe around 800 hertz, because that's where the pop and the attack of the slap really lives.
So it's about precision targeting.
Precision and adaptability. Imagine you walk into a different venue each night. The room acoustics are different, the backline amp might be different. With that sweepable mid, you can quickly find and adjust the frequency that needs tweaking for that specific situation. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so we have this incredibly clean, surgically controllable signal path. What does that actually mean for the musician on a gig or the engineer in the studio? Let's talk about its different roles, the preamp and the DI.
Well, fundamentally, on stage, its main job is often as that crucial link between your bass and the front-of-house sound system. That balanced XLR direct out is the professional standard. You plug that straight into the snake or the mixing desk. It ensures your signal travels over potentially long cable runs without picking up noise or losing fidelity.
And they included the ground lift switch on that XLR out. Seems small, but man, that thing can be a lifesaver.
Oh, absolutely. Anyone who's fought with that horrible 60-cycle hum from a ground loop in an old building knows how essential that little switch is. You flick that switch, it breaks the ground connection on the XLR, kills the hum. Simple, effective, essential. It maintains that clean signal path, free from external interference, too.
And then just thinking about it on your pedal board. It's more than just an EQ, isn't it? It can function as your main preamp.
Definitely. Many players use it as the core of their tone, the first thing the bass hits, but think about the backup scenario too.
Yeah, like your main amp just dies mid-set. It happens.
It happens. If you've got the M81's XLR already running to the PA, which you probably do if you're using it as a DI, well, you just bypass the dead amp, maybe adjust the M81's output level, and you keep playing. Your core tone is still coming from the M81 straight to the house.
It's your instant backup amp, basically. Huge for touring players or anyone using in-ear monitors where the DI feed is their sound, not a stage amp.
Exactly. And don't forget the routing options. It also has that parallel output, just a standard 1/4-inch jack.
Right. What's the use case for that?
It sends out a completely clean, unprocessed copy of your bass signal before the EQ and level controls. Okay. It runs in parallel to the main processed output.
Oh, okay. So you could, for example, send the clean parallel out to your tuner, maybe. Or even to an effects chain or amp.
Precisely. You could send the nice EQ'd signal from the main output or the XLR to the PA for the main house sound, but maybe you send the parallel out to some wild fuzz pedal that then feeds your stage amp just for your own monitoring or for a specific dirty tone.
So you get two paths, clean to the house, dirty to the stage, or however you want to set it up. That's really flexible.
It is. And one more thing on its role. Even if you love your amp sound, a lot of players put the M81 first in line and just leave it on all the time with the EQ set flat.
Just as a buffer or signal conditioner.
Exactly. Because of those high-quality components, the high headroom, the optimal impedance, it just subtly improves the clarity and strength of the signal hitting everything else down the line. It's like professional-grade signal conditioning even before you touch the EQ knobs.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit now. How does the M81 fit into the whole landscape of bass preamp and DI pedals? Why was there a need for something so focused on, well, neutrality?
Yeah, that's a key point because it really boils down to a philosophy. Do you want your preamp to add color or do you want it to be transparent? The M81 really set a standard for transparency. You have to contrast it with other legendary pedals. Think about the Tech 21 Sansamp Bass Driver DI.
Sure, classic pedal, but very different.
Very different. The Sansamp is designed to sound like something else, usually a mic'd-up tube amp rig. It has baked-in coloration, compression, a bit of grit. It's an amp emulator.
Or something like the Aguilar Tone Hammer.
Another great example. The Tone Hammer is loved for its specific voice, that warm, mid-rich, slightly vintage Aguilar sound. It has a definite character.
Right, so the M81, it doesn't try to be an Ampeg or an Aguilar.
Exactly. It tries to be the purest, cleanest, most accurate representation of your bass in your playing. That's why studio engineers often love it. They get a perfect, clean signal to capture, and they can add color later in the mix if needed. And it's why it's popular across so many genres, where clarity is key jazz, gospel, funk, even progressive metal, where you need articulation in complex parts. It lets the instrument's own voice come through consistently, regardless of the venue or the PA system.
So its impact has really been about bringing that kind of studio-level clarity and control into a small pedal format.
Absolutely. Making that surgical, sweepable mid-range accessible was huge. Set a benchmark for what a modern, transparent bass preamp could be.
And it kind of forced players to think more carefully about EQ, right? That EQ discipline you mentioned.
Yeah, it gives you the tools to actually find your sonic space in a mix, to carve out your frequency pocket precisely, instead of just relying on broad, sometimes clumsy bass mid-treble knobs on an amp. It's about control and adapting effectively.
It makes sense. Precision seems to be the recurring theme here.
It really is. And actually, here's a final little detail that shows how integrated the design thinking was at MXR. The EQ section in the M81 preamp. It's virtually identical to the EQ section found in another MXR pedal, the M82 Bass Envelope filter.
Oh, interesting. So they work well together.
Perfectly. You can put the M81 before the M82 filter, use the M81's EQ to shape the signal feeding the filter. For example, boost the low end around 40 Hz with the M81. This means the envelope filter gets a really strong, consistent signal in the frequency range you want it to react to. It makes the filter's response much more predictable and reliable, even if you change your bass volume or playing dynamics. It's smart pairing.
That is clever. Real practical engineering. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive on the M81 Bass Preamp, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. We spent a lot of time talking about the M81's strength, its commitment to transparency, to neutrality, getting the pure sound of the bass.
Right.
But, think about the world we're in now. We have incredibly sophisticated digital amp modeling, impulse responses that can capture the sound of literally any vintage tube amp perfectly, noiselessly.
Go further.
So here's the question. Should the main goal for a bassist today always be preserving that natural instrument tone that the M81 does so well? Or is deliberate coloration, whether it's from an analog pedal like a Sansamp or a high-end digital modeler, actually a better way to find the instrument's ultimate voice in a modern mix?
That's a really interesting thought. Transparency versus deliberate character.
Yeah. What does transparency really mean for your music, your context? Something to mull over. We hope this deep dive gave you some clarity on the MXR M81. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.